like we got a topic, but I just feel like something's happening right now. So let's just we can stay on topic, but let's just see where.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was pretty enlightening because yeah, and I like thinking about my dynamic with her, like, of course, yeah, growing up, she might not have been exactly what I thought I needed or what I wanted, from a mom.
Mm-hmm.
But I said there's so much growth there. There's so many transformations. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't think because we're looking at each other from this like old prescription, if you will, we haven't given each other the space and opportunity to see the growth, to see each other for who we truly are.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like that's how really we can build like emotional intimacy in our relationships is to kind of get a new prescription to like look at, the people for all that they are, not just the things that they did or did not do in the past or,
Mm-hmm.
like what we want from them, like truly see them for who they are. And I
Fact.
told her, like, yeah, like I could look at you, of course, from the lens of the mom that didn't give me what I needed or what I wanted, or, the mom that had bipolar and was going, having these manic, phases and things, hospitalizations. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many like things that I can attach to you, but that's not who you are today,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So I think that's just something we gotta really think about in all our connections, really.
You know what? I don't know if you intended to do that, but this fits so well with the topic that we're going to be talking about today. You must
What's
be
that?
born again.
Mm,
That's the topic. That's honestly the topic that we're going to be talking about today. You must be born again. So, for those that don't know, right? We were just sitting here just conversating. Like literally just got started. We were just sitting here just conversating. And Kalisha, you were just telling me about like the new form relationship that you had with your mother because she had a skewed belief about you and your life just based on your religious upcoming. And I can relate to that because my family was like that. They had a skewed perspective on the things that I would believe in or the things that I would talk about. And really, it was all due to a lack of understanding, right? A
yeah.
lack of even trying to understand for that matter. And you say that we're viewing each other from an old prescription and an old lens, and we're trying to see it from that, and it's like it's outdated. So what you're looking at can't be applied to the person that you are because you haven't evolved into the person that has a level of understanding to even comprehend the things that I'm telling you right now. So even if I simplify it for you, you're still going to be looking at it from that old prescription, from that skewed lens. And so I feel like this topic is so fitting for just the things that we have experienced or we are currently experiencing. And it's just that, like, you must be reborn, you must be born again. So, the idea behind this topic came from a lecture that I was listening to. And the lecture was Reverend Ike. And he was talking about being born again. Really, the topic was the law of receiving. But in the topic, he was talking about being reborn again because he stated that the things that he has didn't come until his second life, right? So, we weren't born with silver spoons. We weren't born with everything that we currently possess, right? We had to be reborn to attain the things that we currently have and to attain the knowledge that we have. And so, going through this life, I feel like we experience death in a different way. Like you have to die to the old person that you once was and be reborn into the person that you desire to be. And it's a constant cycle that happens over and over again. So whenever you hear that topic, right, you must be born again. What comes to mind for you?
What comes to mind for me is thinking about in order to be born again, to begin anew, to start over, to try again, like all of it has to it there's a big foundation in your mindset. And so what I think about is open-mindedness, because a lot of times, and I think in our lives, like we go through what they call dark night of the soul and things like that, you know, there's a lot of shifts that occur, positive and negative, right? But
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people tend to have resistance to it because of a lack of open-mindedness and self-awareness. And I say that, and I was thinking, and this is, you know, this just speaks to, again, to that open-mindedness, but to that like kind of level of growth. I was having a conversation with somebody and they were scrolling on social media, and I forgot who the name of the person was, but it was essentially a Black man that
Mm-hmm.
was openly supporting Trump and, you know, voted for Trump. And I was just listening, and, you know, they were basically saying, like, I don't support, like, they was like angry. They were just like, I don't support him and da 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 da, right?
Right.
And I'm just like, and this, I feel like I'm gonna bring it home, but it just made me realize that I was like, all I could hear was a lack of open mindedness. Because if you went through that person's life and you know, had their experiences and all of that, had their values, more than likely you probably would have voted for Trump too, right? Like, and I also think about it that even if somebody votes for Trump, like if we have more of a curious energy, then we can look at it from more of an empathetic standpoint. Like, I can understand, I don't agree, I don't condone, right? But like, people vote for people and support people for different reasons. It could be maybe because of XYZ, but that don't mean they necessarily approve and support everything he does in his character, you know? So it's just like, for me, that just made me like realize really how much of a lack of open-mindedness that people have. And I think in order to be born again, now obviously we're talking about ourselves, you need open-mindedness to be able to shift. Because I feel like there's limitations we place on ourselves if we don't allow ourselves to be open, to be willing to just flow, which we've had our episode about that too, like not resisting the energy and just flowing with things. But I think it's a mindset shift to be able to be born again. And the thing is, we can be born again at any moment. I could wake up tomorrow or in the middle of the night and decide I'm a brand new motherfucking person.
Yeah. Oh.
I want to, like, I could be closer to my higher self tomorrow, or I could, obviously go the other way too. I can resist and go against my passion and purpose. Like, born again is really, yeah, to me, a mindset.
I like that. When I think of the concept of born again, right? To be born again is to change your thinking, right? To be born again is to be mindful of your words and the effects that they have on your life and on the people around you. And I think the biggest one is to be born again is to teach your mind what to think, to tell your feelings how to feel, and to tell your body how to react. This not only speaks to being born again, but it also speaks to a level of mastery. And to me, being reborn again is really a mastery. It speaks to your mastery because you are showing growth. You're showing that you've mastered this level of your life and now you're ready for the next. Like, your capacity has been filled, or your capacity has been increased, right? Because you fill yourself up to a certain degree and then you prepare yourself to get filled up even more with new knowledge, with new information, with new aspects of yourself that you haven't even been introduced to because you've never had the opportunity to explore these different aspects of yourself. And it's because you were willing to submit to the newer version of you rather than submit to the habits that no longer serve you. Because at one point, the habits that you had a purpose, because they taught you something for one. They helped you to get through a certain aspect of your life, but that's all that they were there for. And now it's time for you to remove these layers and to remove these habits and to remove these things and to step into that higher calling. I was listening to something when I was coming home from drill, and the speaker was talking about imposter syndrome. And he went on to say that imposter syndrome is really just like the old aspect of you holding the new aspect of you back, because you have this belief that you're not worthy of being in certain positions or speaking on certain things or having certain things in your life. And that's only because it's a test. It's a test to show you where your next level lies and where you need to be placing all of your focus on. To me, I like that because that is what imposter syndrome is. Imposter syndrome to me is an indicator letting you know what aspect of your life you need to lean into more, so that way you can grow and evolve. And a lot of us tend to lean back because we think we're not worthy to be in certain aspects of our lives. We're not worthy to be great speakers. We're not worthy of being coaches or mentors or whatever the case may be. But that can be the furthest thing from the truth. And so going back to what I said before about being mindful with your words, you have to speak power into your life, right? You have to speak truth into your life. You have to speak power, knowledge, wisdom, because that is going to show your authority. And it's also going to prove to yourself that you are who you say you are by the way you speak about yourself, by the way you speak over yourself, and by the way you speak over others as well. And to me, this is the true essence of being born again. Because when people see you now, they look at you from a whole nother lens because they have no other choice, because you have evolved. And if they don't choose to see you in that new lens, then that just speaks to their level of evolution, not to yours. So, yeah.
And I love that. Very, that's a very good perspective on it. And it made me think about like if we're born again, right? And I'm thinking about like in the womb when a baby is born, you go from, I don't know if you've ever seen TikTok or anything or have family members that had kids and you see what is it, the sonogram or whatever, like the little, picture, and you be looking like this little thing, like it goes from, this little alien looking thing, and then sometimes they have the 3D pictures, so it does look like a person in there, but it's like, it's still a baby.
Right.
But when you're born, when you go through the womb and you come into this 3D realm, it's like there is a transformation. And I think a lot of times when it comes to the transformation, we think about the rainbows, right? We think about the coming out on the other side, and we're just like more healed and more whole and more happy and more peaceful. But when you're born and that baby is going through that birth canal, that's there's a lot of pressure that is applied. There's a lot of things that are moving. There's a lot of moving parts when it comes to childbirth, right? Like I mean, of course, the pain that comes with it too, but there's the pressure, the pain, the transformation that occurs in order to have this beautiful baby that comes out. And I feel like that is something that we need to, again, it's really the awareness and the open-mindedness, but more so the awareness of what this shift and what this being born again looks like. And I think a lot of times there's this expectation of exactly, what it should be like, what I'm going to come out with, like what it's going to look like on the other side, rather than really just being in that moment and being present and just receiving, being in practicing the art of receiving and not resisting that pressure, that pain, that discomfort, that just, that shift. transformations, more often than not, are not pretty. When I think
Mm.
of being born again, I think of letting go. Like you said, it's that old, that old part of us that's essentially, the new version is holding the other version of us hostage. It's like it's
Mm.
trying to, bring it, and it's like, no, we don't go together no more.
Mm.
And I feel like that's the shift. And again, it's just really perspective. And when we are born again, it's really about bringing it all together, right? It's not
Mm.
necessarily when we say let go of what doesn't serve you. That don't mean we gonna forget. That don't mean we're like, oh, well, I ain't make those mistakes because I'm letting it go, right? Like letting go of what no longer serves me. No, we're not doing that. But it's about integrating the lessons, the shifts, the the wins, the positive, the negative, and integrating it into this whole version of self, which that is the shift, that is the transformation. It becomes a new, more improved, more healed, whatever version of ourselves.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's a fact. You said something that was important. You said integration. It's not about letting go or forgetting what you did, but it's about integrating. I believe that is so pivotal along this journey because in science, the past, the present, and the future are all happening at once, right?
Right.
And so some of us get stuck in either the present or some of us get stuck, well, in the present where we're not doing anything at all. Or some of us get stuck in the past thinking about the things that just we can't change, or thinking about a future that is unforeseen or hasn't even come to fruition yet. And so the thing about it is the past and the present are what creates your future. It's like a ripple effect in the ocean. Like it changes the structure of your life. Like if you put your finger in the water, it changes the structure and the composition of the water because it has to recognize the change in all facets. So even if the water is still, that one touch changes the entire effect of the water. And it's the
Yeah.
same thing.
Assimilation.
Yeah. And it's the same thing with our lives. It's the same thing with everything that we experience. Like we go through life and based on the things that we experience in our present, we understand how to deal and manage different scenarios in our lives when we come in contact with whatever situation is in front of us. And that is what creates the future because now from there on, anything that you do is going to cause a ripple effect for the foreseeable future, but based on the information that you received from a past self. So being born again isn't necessarily about killing off the person that you was, but it's about learning from the person that you once was because you know that you're not going back there. Like some of those feelings may be with you because the mind can block off things, but the body in itself holds memory. So your reactions, certain reactions that you have based on whatever interaction you're having with others, your body's going to remember that. It's going to just react automatically based on the
Yeah.
situation.
Your body keeps the score.
Your body keeps the score. That's a fact.
Have you read that book?
Uh-uh.
It's so powerful. I think, it is so powerful. It's by Bessel van der Kolk, doctor. Yeah. It says brain, mind, and body in the healing of trauma. But that's pretty much what it talks about. It's how even though like when we go through these traumatic experiences and so forth, that the body doesn't forget. If we don't process that, that emotional aspect of what we went through, it's going to lead the body to have dis-ease, and so many complications, but it's a very powerful book.
I like it. I might need to get that. I might need to get that.
Mm-hmm. The body keeps the score.
Yeah, it's true. That is true. Body keeps the score. The mind protects. The mind protects your psyche. So,
Right. And that's too, that's the shift. And I think that one of the things is it's kind of has to do with ego too, right? Because I think a lot of times that ego, and I think people have this negative connotation when they think of ego, but ego is not all negative. Ego, I
oh,
mean, when you think about it, the ego is very loving because it wants to protect us. Now, of course, the how is the thing that we find challenging, but
mm,
the ego wants us to not feel pain. It wants us to, be happy and all the things. But
mm,
that the ego is what tends to cause us to resist a lot of times the transformation, the integration. Because
mm,
it sees, oh, these things are negative. We don't want that. Like that's the old self. We don't know.
mm.
And it wants to resist us, and that ties with the brain and everything. So again, I mean that it all still comes down to perspective and your mindset
Mm.
when going through these transformations. But what do you think, like what are some specific changes in thinking that are necessary for a transformation?
Um, what specific changes in thinking do I believe are necessary?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I believe this when it comes to thinking. We have to teach, our minds have to be taught to think God's thoughts, right?
Okay.
Our minds have to be taught to think God's thoughts. Now, what does that mean? I'm not necessarily talking about from a biblical perspective, but I'm talking about thinking from a higher nature, right? So, um, I just quote that I've heard from an analytical psychologist known by Carl Jung. He states that you don't think about God, you don't think of God, but you think with God because God is always operating through you, right? From within. It's not something that's operating outside of you. It's something that's always operating with you. So whenever you're thinking higher thoughts and you're presented with certain things, you almost know exactly what to do instinctively. Like with certain conversations, you almost know exactly what to say. In certain situations, you almost know exactly what to do because you're always thinking with that higher mind, that higher consciousness. And so when it comes to like specific changes, I would say think higher thoughts. A lot of us tend to lean towards the negative aspects of life, like how things are doom and gloom and how our economy is looking and all of the struggles that we're facing. But I think that reframing your mind to look at it from a higher vantage point so that way you can see the whole picture instead of just what's happening in front of you can literally change the trajectory of your thought process because now you're looking at it from a bigger scale. You're not just looking at it from, well, oh, this thing happened to me, so now it's over. Now you're looking at it from like, oh, this thing happened to me, but I can pivot from this, or I can overcome this, or I can learn from this so that way I can reach the goals that I set for myself. And we literally just had a class on this, right? Is hunt the good stuff, right? And it was just talking about like having a more optimistic attitude and having um, a higher belief in the fact that your life can be better, despite the challenges that you may face, despite the obstacles that you may encounter. There's always a way to look at it so that way you can overcome it instead of just tripping over it. And now you're creating this domino effect of just negative thinking. And now you're just going down this path with no way to really let up, right? And like I said before, our words create our reality, right? Our words create our reality. And so the way that you speak is literally going to create the reality that you live in. Maybe not overnight, but over time, you're going to start to attract that. Oh, you're going to start to attract the things that you speak about. So if you say like, oh, things are always messed up or life is hard and all of these things, then you're going to attract more of that to you. I mean, that's kind of like a basic understanding, but it's something that needs to be repeated over and over again because it's a reforming of your thought process and a reforming of your mind and how you think and how you perceive things. So that's what I would say. What about you?
That's good. I mean, in alignment with that, I would say it's shifting the mindset into from more so like a scarcity mindset, because we can have scarcity and it doesn't mean money, right? Like it can be um, literally anything, just shifting from having limitation type of thoughts, like limiting beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
to more of an abundance mindset, like shifting to thinking when you're going through those transformations and those integrations that you think about what are the possibilities here.
Mm.
If we shift from thinking like I'm limited, these are my circumstances, or this is how things are, or whatever the case may be, if we shift to thinking more so like, yeah, what's possible? What are like even kind of just in a space of allowing yourself to dream, allowing yourself to think like, what are, like what's something that I wouldn't, a place that I don't think I can go mentally and emotionally.
Mm.
Um, because of again those self-limiting beliefs and the identifying with just really what doesn't serve us anymore. So shifting in that type of thinking, and of course it's a muscle that needs to be built, and it definitely takes intention and a lot of practice. But if we allow ourselves to really think about potential
Mm.
versus what, again, just having a lack mindset, I think that would go a long way with these transformations and integrations and being born again.
Mm.
Um, and with that, I would say even changes in thinking, not only changes in thinking, but also changes in the environment. And we had an episode on that too, like kind of,
Mm.
is your environment and everything aligning with your goals? Are your behaviors aligning with your goals? So it's not even just thinking, it's really kind of everything.
Mm.
Surround yourself with people that aren't thinking negative, that aren't limited in their thoughts and beliefs, that
Mm.
are reaching for, like when you think about the people that are the richest people in the world, the best inventors in the world, they had an idea that people were just like, you crazy, like, yeah, okay.
Right.
It wasn't things that, people just thought was like, oh yeah, like I can see that.
Mm.
So shifting that thinking to potential, the possibilities,
Mm.
and ensuring that our environment, people that we're surrounded by people, and who you are around says a lot about you. So if we surround ourselves with people like that, get a mentor, get, coach, whatever the case may be, so that you can be immersed in it,
Mm.
because it will then begin to rub off on you. You will then start to shift in your thinking and your behaviors and things like that.
Mm. Facts. Facts. Environment is important. I think environment is more important than the actual shifting of your thought process, because your environment is going to shift your thought process automatically. Because
Yeah.
environment is more powerful than nature, because nature always attunes to the environment it's in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of that like nature versus nurture conversation. But yeah, I mean, even if your thoughts aren't, those godly thoughts yet, even if you're not thinking more solution focused and more abundance mindset type of thing, if you're around people that do, it's gonna hold you to a level of accountability, because either you gonna check yourself or they gonna check you.
Mm. Facts.
And that's the thing, like I feel like a lot of people, we stuck in these very comfortable connections with people.
Mm.
Um, and it takes us a certain amount of mental fortitude to be around people that are going to hold you accountable, to be
Mm.
around people that are going to push you and challenge you in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, environment is a big part of that. So
Facts. That's important. That is important. You need to have a mindset that wants growth, even in the most uncomfortable situations. I think seeking discomfort is probably one of the most powerful things that anybody can do. Like intentionally looking for things that are uncomfortable to do speaks to your level of character development?
I
You
feel like
know?
my life. Like literally all the big decisions I made, joining the army, cutting
Oh,
my hair. I used to have like a bald fade almost, and all of it was to like, oh, so I can, get out of my comfort zone, so I can not hide, so I can just put myself out there, and I gotta fuck around and find out.
mm,
And that, yeah, I've realized that's not everybody's mindset to just let me just,
yeah,
I don't know if this is great or wrong, but I'm gonna just do it. And
yeah,
that, I mean, that kind of goes again it's with mindset, but it kind of speaks to the episode we just had too about rather than shifting thinking about I'm failing, but shifting that mindset that failure is an opportunity to try again and get it right.
yeah, yeah. I get another chance to try again and get it right. I think when it comes to entrepreneurship, you have to have that level of thinking because there's going to be there's going to be times where you feel like, dang, why did I do this? But then you're reminded as to why you did this. And I think that is a constant thing. Like I have coaches that I follow and they're always talking about it. They're like, why we keep doing this to ourselves? Like we're good, we're successful, but we keep on like raising the bar higher. And I
Yeah,
think that mindset is just something that keeps you growing. And not a lot of people want that because growth is never ending. Growth is
right.
never ending. And this is one of the reasons why I love the business that I've created because it's unlimited and I have to constantly seek discomfort throughout the process. And that's something that I've always done. Like I've always had this free spirit, this entrepreneurial spirit because I knew that nobody was going to value me at the capacity in which I value myself. Nobody's going to pay me at the level of the capacity in which I value myself. So this was the only other route for me to take. And
Yeah.
having that perspective, is so important. But speaking of perspectives, what are some
Mm.
practical methods to align our thoughts with more positive or spiritual perspectives? What do you think?
I mean, again, environment, right? that's
Mm-hmm.
that's I mean, I feel like that's probably, like we said, that's a big part of it. Um, I would also say because I remember there was a period, and I think what's like for me, the stage that I'm at, and I'm just like a sponge, and I mean, I got all the coaches, I'm listening to all the podcasts. I am literally trying to level up in every aspect of my life. And that's only been because of my desire to expand,
Mm-hmm.
my desire to just learn. And even if I read a book and like there's some things that don't align with me, there's going to be some nuggets in there. And I'm going to take those nuggets and it's going to be something that's going to help me shift. And then I'm going to probably have a conversation with somebody else about it, with Paula Zay on our podcast here. And we have a conversation and it shifts you. And then you go make a video. Like it's a ripple effect, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think being able to be okay with being a student, being okay with not knowing, but also having like doing the little things to expand ourselves, to learn more, because we don't have all the answers. I don't care if you've been on this journey, healing and, spiritual shadow work, whatever. Like, I don't care if you've been doing it 10, 15, 20 years, whatever. It is, like you said, it's a never ending. Healing is it's a journey, not a destination. So
Mm-hmm.
trying to incorporate little things, whether you get the coach, whether you start listening to podcasts, whether you start listening to audiobooks, or getting a handheld book and actually reading, like whatever it is to allow yourself to be fed different perspectives, different, like just different, just being open-minded. I think
Mm-hmm.
just incorporating those little practices daily make a huge difference and a huge shift. Because when I think about the space that I was in when I wasn't listening to podcasts, when I wasn't reading, when I wasn't watching YouTube videos and things on personal development, I mean, it's not to say you can't have growth. It's not to say you can't have shifts, you can't have integration, but it's probably going to take a lot longer. It's probably going to be a lot harder because you're in a sense stuck. You're not open.
Mhm. Yeah, that's true. That's true. A lot of these things take time. And we spoke about that today too at my unit. We spoke about that too, like the commander. He was just saying, like, we live in a world of instant gratification and things of that nature. And a lot of people feel as though they're entitled to have whatever it is that they want right then and right there in the moment. But really, whenever you ask for something, you go on the journey of becoming a person who has the capacity to manage and handle the thing that you ask for. And that's how I've always viewed life is when you ask for something, you then go down the pathway of that thing which you ask for. So that way you can be equipped to handle that thing that you want. Because a lot of us want these things, but we don't have the capacity to maintain these things in our reality. So, like with us doing what we're doing, me being a up and coming thought leader, and you being a shadow work coach, there are certain things that you have to go through in order for you to grow and evolve into the person who has the capacity to be a coach or to be a thought leader. Like there's a whole process behind that. But a lot of us don't know that we're going through a process until we've gotten to the end of it and we have all of these stories and these philosophies and this wisdom based on the things that we went through. And that's why it's important to understand how you're using your words because you're literally creating your reality in each and every word that you use. And you're always going down different paths. And there's always a fork in the road that gives you the option to decide if you want to continue on this path or do you want to switch it? Because either way, the goal is going to be the same. It's just the destination might change up a little bit, but the goal remains.
Yeah. And I mean, I tell people words are spells, so it's like be careful what you say. Because yeah, there's so much power there. But then also thinking about it from the perspective that there's like we can either create life or kill, essentially, with our words. We're either we can either bring, speak life into ourselves and where we want to be and speak even the things that we don't have yet, but acting like we do, like bringing that into our reality, or we can kill the dreams. We can, stay stuck in the space that we're in and the comfort zone, essentially, and it all has to do with our words. And again, just speaking to words, matching our behaviors and aligning with our goals where we want to be. It's all it all is connected.
It's all connected. Man, this has been a great topic. I think this is probably one of my favorite topics that we've talked about so far.
I
This
feel
is
like you said
probably
that before.
have we? I probably have. I ain't gonna lie, I probably have. Every time
I
we
don't know.
talk
Every
about it,
episode, I feel like at the end, we like, man, this has been great. Like,
because
but
there's always some good nuggets in it, and it's always valuable. It's like every
yeah,
topic that we talk about has great value for us and for the listeners that are listening and watching as well, because there's something that you can extract from each and every conversation. So,
yeah, yeah. And that's what you should do. That doesn't mean you being, open to being born again, being self-aware and being open-minded does not necessarily mean you listening to these, episodes and you're like, oh yeah, everything resonates. If you got one thing that one takeaway from this, that is that is a shift for you. That is a shift that could, again, that could change so much. So just thinking about it like that, like just being open to trying different things and experiencing different things, listening to different people, just being open to that because you can get a message anywhere. And that's the same thing I speak to as far as like religion and spirituality. I grew up very religious and it was like, oh yeah, like especially, when I was like a Jehovah's Witness and, active in that it was like, we don't go to churches. We don't go, to know, like, no one else's, spiritual, like, place of worship.
Mm.
But now I'm like, I'm so open-minded that I could date somebody that was a Jew. I could date somebody that's Muslim. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not to say that I'm like necessarily searching for it, but I could go to a mosque and I'm gonna
Mm.
get a message.
Yeah.
And that's the mindset that I have. It's not thinking limitations like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna follow you no more because you follow Trump or support him or whatever, you serve this person. It's more so from a curious energy and like, what can I take from this? What just being open so that whatever is meant for me to receive, I receive it. And I trust that even if I do talk to people that don't align with me or have different, values and beliefs or whatever the case may be, I'm so confident and firm and grounded in who I am that that's not going to affect it. But I'm also open for transformation. I'm
Mm.
open to the possibility of you know what? Wow, I didn't even think of that. Like,
Mm.
that makes
Yeah.
sense, and it shifts me, and that's okay.
Mm.
Just being open.
Yeah, for sure. Just being having an ear of discernment, I would say. Like discerning information. Because the more you know, the more you can like extract and just be like, okay, I like this, I like this, I don't like this. I like this, I like this, I don't like this. And then you create your philosophy from there.
Right.
And that's how you live your life. At least that's
Yeah.
how I live my life. That's just the philosophy because I feel like there's wisdom in everything, in all books, in all of these ancient texts.
Yeah. There's
And
everything.
just in life in general, like
Yeah.
there's something that you can learn from every aspect of life. And I like to keep that type of mindset because I never want to be the type that's so closed minded to where it makes me ignorant and naive to certain
Yeah.
aspects of life or how other people live their lives. Like always
Mhm.
having a level of understanding is so important.
Yeah.
And
That, I
so
mean, that also speaks to like intuition too, which that helps to build that intuition. I don't know if any, of the listeners here are like how I was, because I remember when I was like delving into my, sense of spirituality and who I was, outside of my titles, mother, student, wife, whatever the case may be.
mm,
Like, I was just like, I felt so lost, but there was a part of me that um would like I would how am I trying to word this? There was a part of me that was wondering, like, how you question, like, what is my higher self? Like, how do I know it's intuition versus like more of a fear based or
mm,
something like that? Like,
mm,
and I don't know. I like somewhere along the line there was this shift that now I know my intuition, like it's me, but at the same time, there was a time where I couldn't recognize it. But
mm,
being able to be in these spaces, like allowing yourself to be in spaces and environments and connecting with people of different backgrounds and beliefs and just, just separate from what allows you to, again, I can learn, I can hear, and then I can take bits and pieces of what resonates for me, and like you said, create my own philosophy, and
mm,
that will build that muscle of intuition, because then you create more safety in your body, saying like, okay, I'm open to, right, like I can hear all these things, and at the end of the day I can decide what's best for me.
mm.
And I don't know if people were like me, but that was a big thing for me. Like I was just like, how do I know my intuition? And I want to, I want to hear it. And like I
Yeah.
had all these, and I didn't. Now in hindsight, I see how it was built.
Mm.
But when you're going through it and you in the mud, like you don't, you don't
You
see.
don't know. You don't know what you don't
I was
know.
just lost, And meanwhile, I'm like, I had the map.
Mm.
I
The
was on
whole
the right
time.
path. So, yeah.
The whole time. The whole time. It'd be like that though. But again,
They do. They do. That hindsight's a mother. Oh man, it's when I if I could think of all the times that I thought I was lost or doing the wrong thing,
Mm.
And it's like, I mean, yeah, it may have been the wrong thing in the sense of like maybe I wouldn't repeat the behavior or whatever the, thing was, but it all happened for a reason. I would not be who I stand here today as if I didn't go through what I went through. If I
Mm.
wasn't born again 20 times, in my lifetime, you know. So
Look, we experience many different quote unquote deaths in our lives. And
yeah.
we're always being reborn over and over and over again. But we're reborn again with new knowledge or with like knowledge of what we've already experienced. So it's not like we're coming in naive or like we've never done this before. It's like, okay, we done lived a little bit now. So we kind of got an understanding as to how this whole thing works or how our own like biochemistry and how our three-dimensional reality works now. Like we understand how it operates. So now we can shift and mold it and create it into what it is that we desire it to be now.
Yeah. And I one thing I will say, I challenge listeners
Mm.
to think about what they want to speak life into. What shift or what transformation or what integration they want to occur. This is like we're in November, right? So I understand like we're getting closer to the end of the year and people are, all about the like New Year's resolutions. But you can be born again tomorrow. Like I said, like you could be born again like 10 seconds from now. So, what is the shift that you want to occur? And I challenge people to not think necessarily it doesn't have to be like this huge, big, grand thing, right? But it can be small changes that have a ripple effect, as we've talked about. So, think about, yeah, like what do you want to speak life into right now? What do you want to shift? What is one thing that you can incorporate daily or weekly to get to that shift, to
Mm.
support the shift? you
Mm.
know,
That's the homework right there. And I'll even add on top of that the questions. So we didn't talk about all of them, but these questions right here that we have in our notes, we'll list these questions in the description for you to answer as well to help you come to your own conclusion as well. And yeah, that'll be your homework. So before the year is out, before the year is out,
yeah.
or even into the new year, you can still ask yourself these questions to put yourself in a new, reborn perspective for you to achieve whatever it is that you're trying to achieve.
And they're not one and done.
Mm.
Like you may have to re-ask yourself these questions 3 months from now, 2 years from now. But
Mm.
that's the journey. That is the journey. That's it. Like we're constantly evolving, or at least we should be.
We should be.
We should. So
It's automatic, no
yes.
matter.
So yes, we again. I mean, I say it every episode. So much gratitude for y'all holding space with us and joining in. I certainly look forward to the aha moments and the the perspective shifts. If you guys choose to share with us, we certainly would love to hear.
Mm. Definitely, definitely. And always thank you for being on this journey with us. And thank you for allowing us to be on this journey with you. And I truly believe we do better when we grow together. So let's continue to grow one another. And until next time, peace and progress.
Peace, y'all.